Hey guys, what's going on? This is Adam with ReGen Total Wellness coming at you today from our warehouse here in Tempe, Arizona. Today we're going to be diving deep into these types of chillers, these all-in-one types of chillers that you see all over the marketplace. We're going to be dissecting this chiller, looking at all the individual components on what makes these operate, and I will tell you, we will explain why you will never see ReGen Total Wellness going with an all-in-one chiller. They are simply unreliable, not durable, and they do not last. And our whole mission is to create a cold tub that lasts for years and years to come. Come on with me, let's dive in. Now, one thing I wanted to mention regarding this specific all-in-one chiller that we have here, we got this from one of our suppliers overseas. Very reliable, very high quality supplier. He sent us this as a sample so that we could test it out. We could see if it was something we wanted to use. Knowing how well we trust him and how high quality the other supplies that we get from him are, and then seeing how low quality this is, it actually makes me quite concerned with folks that are buying these all-in-one chillers. Now, a couple things I wanted to talk about before we get started here. If you look at the filters, you'll notice there's actually two filters, which seems like a good concept. The problem is this pre-filter here, this is gonna catch larger sediment. It's gonna catch things like lint, hair, things like that. But look at the size of this thing. It is not going to take much for this to get completely jammed up. And from our experience, and we've tested this in our OG model, but something that was about, I'd say about 50 times the size. The problem is this gets jammed up and gets jammed up fast to a point where you're needing to do maintenance on this almost every single day. You're needing to take this off, clear it off every single day. And if you don't, this in itself will jam up the water flow and prevent the system from efficiently moving water through the system. The other thing you'll notice is the main micron filtration system here. This filter, again, super small. It's a 2.5-inch diameter filter. Now I get it. This is what most of the industry uses as their standard water filter. Very, very tiny. And we'll have another video, you should check it out, talking about filters and what we use and why we use them. The issue with these filters, both these right here, it does not give you a lot of flexibility in your required maintenance. If water flow slows down because this gets jammed up or this gets jammed up, your water system is going to stop moving, which is essentially going to freeze up this chiller and burn out the compressor. All right, guys, so we're getting pretty close here to getting this chiller completely undone. Take off this digital display real quick. And we pretty much have this thing almost disassembled. So let's finish this up. All right, so we just talked about this filter. When you pull out and see what's behind the filter, the first thing you'll notice right inside this pre-filter is an elbow. I've already cut the pump off, and so it's right here. So it comes in, there's an elbow right behind this inlet. There's a second elbow here. You've got this tiny micro pump. I'm talking this thing is 3 inches by 2 inches. And I do not know the specs of this specific pump, but I bet you it's not moving more than maybe a couple hundred gallons an hour. Then after that, you've got another elbow and another elbow. So you have 4 elbows in this thing within a 6-inch span. Now, anytime you have an elbow, that's gonna cause friction, that's gonna cause restriction, and it's going to make that pump slow down even more. So when you start with an underpowered pump, then you add in elbows, that's going to restrict the flow. Now let's talk about the piping size. You can see this pipe right here. This is 1/2-inch PVC piping. 1/2 inch is very, very small. So you have undersized, small piping. You have multiple elbows in a short period of run, and then you have a micro pump that's barely moving any water. That is a recipe for disaster. That is not going to be efficient. Water flow is the absolute most important feature of any cold tub, and if that is compromised in any fashion, the rest of the system is not going to work. The water is going to get cloudy and nasty. It's also going to make the compressor and the rest of the chiller freeze itself up and essentially burn itself out. Now let's talk about why these all-in-one chillers typically come with tiny, small pumps. The water flow has to move fast enough through the water reservoir, but it can't move too fast. Otherwise, the chiller is not going to work efficiently. So every single system on the market uses pumps that are spec'd out to within range of that water chiller. So what ends up happening is you get an undersized system and you get water that's already moving on the slow side of things. And again, Any additional friction because of a dirty filter is going to cause that system to fail. Now, I think it's important to just kind of mention why we build the tubs the way we build the tubs. I want to show you the differences as far as the components that we use so that you can get a better idea as to why this matters, why this makes a difference. Let's start with the filter. Again, this is the filter that almost every single one of our competitors uses. Here's our filter. This is our OG filter. Our blast filter is even larger than this. But look at this. Look at the size difference. What does that matter? What does that mean? Well, this means that this is going to, the bigger the filter, is going to give you more flexibility on your required maintenance. First off, you don't have to change these filters as often as these. You can actually change these probably about 3 times less frequent than you have to change this filter. The other thing is, again, because it's bigger, you have more flexibility. You don't have such a short period, a short range of needing to change that filter immediately, because this gives you more flexibility and a little bit more leeway so that if you don't change the filter right at the exact moment, that's okay with this because you have a little bit longer because it's bigger. So if you look at circulation pumps, for example, this is very common in an all-in-one chiller. Very small, very underpowered, probably moving 300 to 400 gallons. And that is because that's all a chiller can handle, at least a very low quality chiller. When you look at our circulation pump, look at the size difference. This thing is probably 10 times the size. It's probably moving 10 times the amount of water. This circulation pump that comes on our OG and our core is moving over 3,000 gallons an hour. If you do the math, that means water in our system is turning over 100% every 3 to 5 minutes on average. Every time it turns over, it's going through our oversized Micron filtration system. Again, a bigger filter means less maintenance, less times you have to change it, and more forgiveness in your required maintenance. Because if you don't service the tub right when you need to, no big deal with ours because you have more forgiveness. Something that's using a filter this size or this size, if you miss your required maintenance, this is going to burn the system out in these types of systems. With here, you have more forgiveness. PVC piping, again, look at that inside diameter, 1.5 inch Schedule 40 PVC compared to what these all-in-one systems use, which is 1/2 inch. Look at the difference. We are talking major restriction in these tiny little pipes. These tiny little elbows don't give you a lot of room for flexibility or forgiveness when it comes to water movement. That's why we use the piping that we use, because it does give you less restriction, more water movement, and again, more flexibility and more forgiveness in the maintenance of your tub. Now, the last question you may be asking is, how can we get away with a pump that's moving over 3,000 gallons an hour without overpowering the system? That's our unique plumbing design. We have a unique plumbing design that nobody else has in the marketplace that allows us to move so much water without overpowering that chiller. The chiller, the movement going through the chiller is perfectly spec'd out so that it's not overpowering it, and it is operating at absolute maximum efficiency. And because we're moving so much water, that water is crystal clear. All the sediment is getting pulled out by this filtration system. We also use a very powerful ozone, very consistent, reliable, ultraviolet ozone, which is different than what our competition uses, which is corona discharge ozone. We like ours because you know exactly how much ozone is being infused into the water at any given time. Corona discharge, what our competition uses, you have no idea. You can't measure it, you can't see it, you have no idea, and that's why we use what we use. All right, now that we've had a chance to dissect this chiller and look at the internal components, we have only reconfirmed our position that these chillers with their super restrictive and undersized components do not meet the quality standards that we require when it comes to building cold tubs. We use our unique plumbing design, our oversized components, and our high flow rate for a reason. And that reason is because we build our tubs to last for years and years to come.